Welcome to the 6th episode of the J&J podcast. I am one of your hosts, John Madigan.
I'm your other host, Joe Vassallo.
We are the J&J podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and Podbean, all of these freaking places, and it's insane. Joe, how are you today?
I'm doing well.
You know, today is a big day for the podcast. You know, we're doing our 6th episode, and it's always just been me and you, and we got our first guest.
But we're not telling who he is.
We're not saying it yet until we have an official date, but last week I reached out to somebody who is a little famous, and he's out there, and his videos have millions of hits online, and you've seen him on TV and whatnot. And I reached out to him last week, and just a few hours ago, he wrote back and said, let's do it. And he wants to be on our show, which I couldn't believe.
Now, John, I just want to say something. I say we make this a little fun for the viewers, for the listeners, don't you?
What did you have in mind?
I had in mind that we don't actually tell them, right, who it is until the day of, and we let them email in, and who they think it is going to be. And if anyone gets it right, we give them a special shout out on the show.
We'll give you a special shout out. If you send us an email, podcast@jmadigan.com, with the correct guest, we will not only give you a shout out, we'll allow you to ask this person a question during the broadcast. Now, we have not set up a date with this person. I corresponded back immediately and said to him, whenever you want to do this, we will do it. But he is a person, he is out there in the news, you know, as soon as today. And his videos have millions, literally millions of hits online. He has spoken to a lot of people, and he definitely gets the message across. And we are very excited to have him aboard. And we just cannot wait, and we're hoping to have that ASAP. We told him whenever he wants. We're just currently waiting on that email back, but he said to us, John, let's do it. I want to be on. Sounds like fun. So we can't wait. We're excited. Send us an email, podcast@jmadigan.com, to see who you think it is. And if you have a question for that person, we will read it to him, or we'll have you on to join. But we're very excited. But Joe, what did you have for lunch today?
You know, John, I wasn't feeling too well today. I made myself a salad. It was a good-looking salad, but I just really, in the end, I couldn't eat it. I had a small cup of yogurt, and that was really about it. I wasn't feeling too well today. What about you, Johnny?
You know, Joe, usually we film our episodes late at night, like 10, 11 o'clock at night. But today, we're filming at 2 in the afternoon. So I actually have not had lunch yet. So I'm sorry. I can't. I don't have a plan. I don't have a plan. Maybe I'll have like a muffin or something.
Muffin? You live 5 minutes from the best deli in New York, and you're getting a muffin.
All right, maybe I'll go out. I'll get a sandwich after this. We'll have some fun. You know, Joe, I'd like it if we had an episode where we both like had sandwiches during the podcast and ate our sandwiches while talking about the podcast and whatnot. I think that might be fun. You know, 2 heroes, 1 microphone. You know.
Next YouTube sensation.
There you go. But we're not even on YouTube yet. I have thought about taking the video aspect of this podcast and putting it up on YouTube just for the hell of it. But what people don't realize is that every episode of the podcast is edited out in some form. We film for much longer than what you guys actually hear on iTunes. Usually it's, you know, because I said something stupid, but you'll see.
Usually, you mean all the time, John? All the time.
I usually say a few jokes inside every episode that get cut out because Joe doesn't want you to hear that. But you know, there'd be a difficulty, you know, cutting out the audio and the video at the same time, and then, you know, trying to get it right, you know. But it's something I've considered, and maybe as this podcast gets, maybe with our with our guest coming in, we'll do a video. We'll do video on YouTube with it. But we're very excited to have this special guest on. We cannot wait. We hope to bring it to you as soon as next week. But who knows? It's all up to his schedule. But we did get confirmation that he wanted to be on. and we're just very excited to have him. Now, Joe, off the top of your head, did you have a certain topic you wanted to talk about?
And I've explained this on the podcast a few times. I'm way overworked. I have 7 classes, plus student ministry and a whole bunch of different stuff. And so I had something and I had it and I was like, this would be great for the podcast, but I just don't remember it. And I'm sorry, fans.
It happens. I have a few things I want to talk about. Now, Joe, you've expressed a few times now on the podcast that you're not into like modern music. You're more into. But have you ever heard of an artist named Kesha?
Sounds vaguely familiar.
Kesha she still is an artist who signed to Sony Records. She came out with 2 albums, like 2.5, because she at one point she came out with like an extended album, which is just like 6 songs. And a lot of her songs hit mainstream airwaves. She has a huge fan base. And right now, I'm not sure. Have you seen the hashtag going around? Hashtag Free Kesha?
No.
Okay, so you know nothing about this case at all.
Not at all, but I can guarantee you I'm going to think it's stupid.
No, this is actually a pretty serious case. This is this went to the court, a courthouse in New York, City Hall.
Well, courthouse in New York must be legit.
No. Honestly, this is a serious topic. I know we like to laugh, but this is a serious topic.
Okay.
So, what happens is, obviously, when a person makes a song, if you're with a record label, it's not all you. You're working with multiple people. You have people who help you write the song, produce the song. There is a producer in the music industry named Dr. Luke. Dr. Luke is one of the biggest producers in music today. 9 out of every 10 songs you hear on the radio, he either helped co-wrote or co-produced. And he is, when it comes down to music, he is great. And it's a lot of artists' dreams to work with Dr. Luke because they know if they get Dr. Luke on their album, there's a good chance that their song will be a hit, and then they'll make a lot of money. So Dr. Luke signed a 10-album contract with Kesha, and Kesha wants to get out of her contract with Dr. Luke. Now, you might be saying, why, if this guy is so big and so huge, why would she want Dr. Luke to get out? She is claiming that Dr. Luke raped her. And that is why she wants to get out. Not only did he rape her, but he harassed her, said things to her like, you're so fat, you're ugly, you need to do this, that, and the other thing. You need to change your appearance. She actually had to go to rehab for it because she felt very emotionally abused. And not to mention, she's claiming that he raped her, which is just it's a horrible thing. Now, unfortunately, the problem is there is no proof of any of this. She just wants out of her contract. And when they went down to the courthouse in New York like 2 or 3 days ago, from the time of this recording, they said no, she lost the case. Dr. Luke kind of just went out and said, hey, look, I put $60 million into this girl's career. I don't want to lose her. And the judge sided with him, which is kind of crazy. Joe, what do you think just on first impressions?
First impressions, I don't know, right? Like, I just don't know. And the reason I'm saying I don't know is there's so much underhandedness, right, in the media business as a whole, right, these days, right, it's just like, how can you tell who's telling the truth, right? Especially in something that's this fuzzy, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
I think what should be done is they should have the contract broken off, but she should have to pay back the $60 million.
Right. Now, I mean, I don't know if her career is doing that well. And obviously, if she did get raped, I don't think they should force her to work with her rapist. I mean, I'm sorry.
That's awful. That's awful. The question is, did it happen?
Right. And I don't know how you would prove rape. But again, why would somebody lie about this? I kind of in my head think Like, it's not. She's not asking for money, and she's not asking for him to be put in jail. She just wants out of her contract, so she doesn't have to work with him anymore. She just wants
Right, right.
out. She wants to go to a different label.
And in light of the fact that that he's really popular, that it would be hurting her career.
Right. Exactly.
I guess that gives credibility to it. Yeah, let her out. You know what I mean? Let her out.
Right. A few months ago, Joe, you know who One Direction is, I'm sure. And
I know of them. I've never actually listened to any of their music. That's not true, but I've not listened to too much of their music.
One of the guys from One Direction, I believe it was Zayn. I don't listen to One Direction, but I believe it was Zayn. He left the band and he left his contract because he said he wasn't happy, and it was fine. And they're signed to the same label. Now they don't have a contract with Dr. Luke as far as like a 10 album deal kind of thing. He's just signed to Sony Records, which is the same company that Kesha is signed with, and they were kind of like, all right, fine, you're not happy, like that's cool, and like it was like a mutual split, and it was fine. Which I was just, and the fact that they won't let Kesha out is pretty amazing. I thought it was kind of crazy.
Fair, John. No one's really upset when One Direction stops being a band, right? I don't know Kesha, but
hey, look, I mean, I am not a personal fan of One Direction. I've seen them live because I go to Jingle Ball every year, and they've appeared there. And so I would say, what did you say?
That's why you see them live.
There you go. I've seen them live at Jingle Ball, and I must say, I believe they have impressive voices. I think they can sing well. Their just type of music is just not my type. Same thing with Justin Bieber. I think Justin Bieber can sing. I saw him actually a few times because of Jingle Ball. And there was one time where his leg was broken, and he still went up on stage and sang his songs. And I heavily, I thought that was great. I really appreciated that. You know, it just showed he was dedicated to his music.
Probably about the only one who did, John.
No. It was a big thing. It was but I think it's so crazy how they won't let Kesha. And this has become a big thing. There was a huge protest outside the courthouse. The judge's phone number and home address actually leaked online, believe it or not.
Wow, that's bad.
And people are pissed because, and so many artists, Lady Gaga, Halsey, Alicia Cara, so many people are coming out and saying like, you know, I can't believe the judge said no. Like, this is becoming a huge thing. Hashtag Free Kesha has been trending on Twitter worldwide for the past few days because they just can't believe the fact that they didn't let this girl out after saying she was raped.
Right, and I think the potential that's bad here is that we make it a feminist women's rights thing opposed to just, no, like you shouldn't. So like if it was a guy who was raped by a woman, right, if it should anger people just as much if the result was the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it shouldn't be about a woman being raped. It should be about rape being wrong as a whole, right? But I can see that as a whole, like I can see it being turned into a feminist thing.
Right, I agree. And I kind of feel like the issue here is because Kesha's not asking for any money or for him to be put in jail, she wants out and just to find him guilty. And I think the whole reason why Dr. Luke is fighting back is not even because he wants to work with her, but just imagine being in the music industry and saying, I'm guilty to raping one of my artists. Who's going to work with you?
Right.
So I think he's really just trying to cover himself and say, I'm not a rapist and I'm going to win this in court. That's what I think. I really think he's just trying to cover himself because Kesha wins that case. He will never work with any artist, because, he was found guilty of raping one of his artists. I mean, it just won't happen. Now, this was for, the court hearing was just a few days ago, but this, first came to the public's attention about a year ago. And when I first heard about this, I thought we were going to get what I like to call the Cosby effect. The Cosby effect is where one woman came out and said, hey, Bill Cosby raped me. And then 47 other women came out and said, Bill Cosby raped me. I thought we were going to get something like that, where Kesha came out and said, okay, he raped me. And then other artists would come out and say, yeah, he raped me too, because he's worked with a lot of people. Like the list just keeps going. So the fact that nobody came out and said, "Oh yeah, no, it happened to me too," really shocked me. I thought like I was really thinking we were going to get some of that. I mean, I don't know, Joe. Do you think the Cosby effect is is appropriate?
I don't think so, John. And I'm not saying whether or not I think Bill Cosby did what he was accused of, right? But what I am saying is that when you're as old as Bill Cosby and as rich as Bill Cosby, okay, 47 women over that span of time, right? It's not a shocking number, right?
Oh, I think
it's shocking if he did it. It's terrible if he did it. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying like how old is this Dr. Luke?
Dr. Luke, I want to say he is.
Just give me a rough guess.
No, I can find it. He's 42.
He's 42, right? So if he did this to a lot of women in that short span of time, right, then that would be shocking, right? But like if somebody's a serial rapist and that means that they have to keep doing it and they're ancient, chances are they did it a lot.
Right.
Now I'm curious. I want to know your opinion about something, John.
Go ahead.
What should happen to a man or a woman or a person who's found guilty of rape? What should be their punishment?
Castration for one. I think they should be castrated for sure. A life in prison. I mean, rape is one of the most horrible things, especially when you hear it happens to children. Like,
yeah.
Oh God, and I've never been to jail yet, but but I heard that they don't appreciate, like, even rapists have even people in jail have kind of like a moral thing where like they kill rapists. Like Jared Fogle is definitely getting a $5 footlong right now. I mean, it is bad. And by the way, did you hear
one of those things to our viewers who are listening right now, or our listeners right now? That's one of those things that's probably going to get cut out.
Really? Jared Fogle getting a $5 footlong? The guy raped children. I can't make fun of a guy who raped children. Screw him. What do I care about his opinion?
It's certainly wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong to rape children, but it's not wrong for me to make fun of him.
But here's the thing, John, right? Like, do you believe that there can be restoration for such a person?
I mean, it says God forgives all sins, but I mean, there should be an exception to that rule. I mean, Jared Fogle proved that. I mean,
well, there is an exception to the rule, but it's not rape.
What is the exception?
It's called blaspheming the Holy Spirit, and don't actually ask me what it is because I don't know. No one does.
Well, blasphemy, from my opinion, is like making like a Jesus joke or something.
Right. But we don't know what, because the context of that in the language it's used is different than our context. So I don't actually know what it means. Right. Like the semantic range escapes me, and people have been arguing about what it means for ages. I mean,
sure. I mean, and there's no way to truly know. I mean, we just have to take everything with a grain of salt and, live the best lives we can possibly do. I mean,
I don't know about all that.
Okay, fair enough. Speaking about Jared Fogle, let's get on this topic. It was in the news headlines the other day. This is a true headline. Jared Fogle challenges sentence. It's wrong to punish me for my fantasies. TMZ is reporting that Jared Fogle is challenging the judge who sentenced him to more than 15 years in prison, arguing that he's being punished in part for his fantasies, and fantasies are not a crime. But I thought he did it. I guess partially is like the porn that they found, and he's saying like it's a fantasy. But he actually did go out and rape women. I mean, not even women, little girls. I mean,
right. And what you have to understand is, John, is like, yes, fantasies are wrong, right? And the Bible says that. The Bible says if you look at a woman with lust in your eyes, you've already committed adultery in your heart.
Right. Fantasies are wrong. I mean, I don't know how much of a legal aspect there is. I mean, I'm talking morally. I mean, from a legal aspect, I don't know how fantasies are treated. But, I mean, dude, the fact that you're even, if this was me, now this is not me, but if I was in his position, I would just, F it. I got caught. I would be like, all right, do whatever you have to do. I wouldn't be fighting this. I wouldn't be delaying this. I would just take it to whatever it is you need me to do, because that's going to get me in the least bit of trouble, and that's the way I can get back on my life. I mean, this guy is not even thinking. He is trying every way possible to make this right.
See, like, if I was in his position, and I'm not in his position at all, but if I was in his position, I would have turned myself in the second I started having fantasies about little children. I would have gone to you, John, and I would have been like, all right, John, it's time. You got to kill me, bro. Right? You know what I mean?
I mean, if you felt like you couldn't control it, then that's what you felt like you needed. I mean, I don't know if I can kill you, Joe, but I understand the metaphor you're saying.
Right. And I that's a load of horse crap, all right? Everyone has control over themselves, all right? Saying you can't control something, okay, is just not true. It's not a thing.
He's not saying he can't control it. He's just saying he shouldn't be punished for it. He's like, yeah, I have fantasies, but, I shouldn't have to, I don't get it. He's saying, I think he's saying part of the sentence that he's in for more than 15 years in prison. And I think he's saying that part of the sentence is because of his fantasies, and that he's being punished for his fantasies, and that the sentence should be lowered, because fantasies are not illegal.
Well, and I think a better question to ask is, what do you do with him, right? If he's saying that he has these fantasies, right, and he did this stuff, right, he's going to do it when he gets out, right?
Right, totally.
And so I think a much better thing to do with people in this particular situation that he's in is rehabilitation.
Oh, totally. Yeah, he needs rehab. There's no doubt about this. This gentleman needs rehab. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And if the rehab doesn't fix him, right, throw him in a rubber room. Like, don't put him in prison for his entire life. But you have to there are certain people that we cannot, if they will not be fixed, right, we cannot help them, right? We can't let them around. Like, I wouldn't let them near my kids.
Oh, absolutely. God, no. But, yeah, exactly. I mean, putting these people in jail. I mean, look, Jared Fogle deserves to be in jail. There is no doubt about it. But I also feel like that these people who are criminals, that I'm not talking about. I mean, drug addicts should go to rehab. But, jail shouldn't be just a place that we lock inmates in. It shouldn't just be four walls, a bed and a bathroom. It shouldn't be just that. It should be a place that helps you when you get on the outside. It should be a place that, like, okay, yeah, you messed up, but guess what? We're going to make you better, and just by pissing them off and whatnot is just not going to do that. And when they get out, that's why they're saying, more than likely when people get out of jail, they go right back in, because prisoners are not getting the help they need. And for an all better world, I feel like that's what we need. We need more help inside prisons. So people, when they get out, they become better people and they can live a life and they won't be back there. It would definitely fix the overcrowding problem, and it would make our world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting thing because the Bible talks about this thing called I want to know your concept of this, because I feel like we have a wrong concept of this in our society. But what's your concept of restitution, or what's the word? Restitution and I used it before. Begins with an R.
Restitution and
reconciliation. There's one more. Restoration. That's the word I'm looking for.
Restoration. Reconciliation. Restoration. The 3 R's.
Yeah, what are your conceptual schemes of that, John? We're gonna get a little deep on this episode.
Joe, talk to me like I'm 5, okay? You're saying all these big words. Reconciliation. That would be like if me and you get into a fight, like we reconcile.
Yeah. Okay.
And then what was the other one?
Restitution, and then restoration.
Restitution. That's like me paying a debt to society, right?
I guess so.
What's your definition?
I would view it more as restoring what was lost.
Restoring what was lost, because that did we just say restoration?
What?
Yeah. Did we just say restoration? Okay.
Yeah,
How did I not get that? Okay.
So, but and then restoration, right, is like him being helped into the way he should be, right, into the way God created him to be. God did not create him to rape little girls, right? Like, that was not how God created him to be.
Well, I would hope God didn't create anybody for that. I would truly hope.
Right. God didn't create anyone for that, right? God didn't create anybody for murder or theft or these things, right? But we fall into these traps, and our society is concerned with punishment, but never restoration or restitution.
Right. I mean, I think when I hear you talk about this, one of the first things I hear about, I think in my mind, is about these people going out and trying to get a job. Now, for a past inmate, getting a job is one of the most difficult things in the world, because your job application, every job application I've applied to has had a little checkbox that said if you've been committed for a crime in the past 10 years, or a different amount of time. And if you have to say yes, that definitely brings your score down a lot. And I mean, I get it, especially in jobs that are working with the public. Like I said before, statistics show that most people who get out of jail go right back in. And, if times were changed and they had, systems in place to truly help these people when they get out, then I could see, there being a difference in allowing people with prior convictions to be working with the public, because they fulfilled requirements. I don't think spending your time in jail is enough. I think you have to go through certain requirements that will prove to the world that you are a better human being than you were when you stepped in. And right. I think it's something we need to focus on in this country.
Right. And I think empathy is a big part of that, right?
I'm John Madigan, vote for president.
I
am running for president.
All right, John. Anyway, in about 15 more years you can. But anyway, and I think a big problem with that, and you've seen this, Sean. We've lived through this. Me and you have, where we'll be walking and we'll see something, and I'll say, John, we need to deal with that right now, and you'll be like, Joe, don't get involved.
Right? Yeah, totally. That has happened many, 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 many times, and I'm sure those stories are going to go out in this podcast sometime, for sure.
Right, and so the idea is if that we cannot walk in empathy. If I can't look at a human being who's going through something and say I need to help them, right? Mm-hmm. Then we've lost, right? And our society teaches it all the time. Don't get involved, right? We teach it all the time, and that's the root of why these criminals aren't getting helped at all, and why they do the things that they do. Because if they can put themselves in that person's shoes, then they might not do what they're doing.
Right. Definitely the act of don't get involved is becoming more and more common in today's society. And I think people are just afraid of getting sued or having to involve themselves with the police. They don't want to do anything wrong, then have to go to jail. And then, by all means,
have you ever heard of Kitty Genovese?
No, who's Kitty Genovese?
It was a famous case I want to say it was about 20, 30 years ago. And this woman was stabbed, and she screamed. 38 people saw and heard her, right? And she bled out for 30 minutes, and she died, right?
Wow.
And when the police asked all the neighbors and everyone around, why didn't you help her? They said, well, we didn't want to have to go to court and testify. We didn't want to have to hear what was going on. We didn't want to have to be interviewed by the police, right?
Right.
And that woman lost her life. All it really would have taken, she bled out for 30 minutes. So I want to put this into perspective for you. Okay. Say
it's about the length of our podcast.
About the length, exactly. So, like, if somebody heard her within the first 5 minutes, they could have run down there, right? Applied pressure to the wound, right? Called 911, and she would have been fine.
Right.
Instead, we have a dead woman, right? Because people didn't want to be interviewed by the cops.
Right. But, Joe, I mean, you can also see why people would not want to get involved, right?
Not exactly. Right? Like, if the first commandment, right, which the Bible says the first commandment is to love the Lord your God with your whole heart, and the second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself, then I don't see anything in either of those commandments that gives me room to not get involved when someone's in trouble.
All right. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, especially if someone got stabbed, I know me and you would do something in a heartbeat. But, I can kind of see, emotions are running high. Things are going nuts. Like, I'll give you an example, obviously not on the same level of stabbing. I was at a store today in Staten Island. I will not name the store. And a fist fight broke out between one of the store's owners and a customer. Now, I don't know what the fist fight was about. I was ordering food. I had my headphones in, and I started hearing like a large amount of yelling. And so I took my headphones out. I turned around and I watched because it was a lot of fun. And nobody got involved. They did call the police, though, and that was really interesting. Police showed up rather quickly, and it was not good, though. I mean, it was everyone was kind of freaking out in the store. It was nuts. Employees were like, oh man, oh god, like they're freaking out. So I saw certain employees, they're just heading into the back because they just don't want to deal with the police or anything. They don't want to. And then they got security cameras all around. It was really interesting. And I heard the guy the customer say about the store clerk, oh, she's here, she's gonna witness on my behalf. And the store was like, she's not gonna witness. You nuts? She's gonna witness for you? Yeah, no, not gonna happen. And I just thought that was really interesting.
Right.
Now now obviously all cops, the conversation with the cops were in private. Obviously I was not a part of that, and because I didn't see the fight from the first punch, I didn't know who hit who first. I honestly and truly don't know who put whose hands on first. But I believe it's rather interesting, and I saw nobody got involved at all. We're all watching. We're all very intrigued to know what's going on, but nobody got involved. And I do wonder if this is something that has to change.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is.
Now, the son of the store owner, who also works at this store, he did get involved. He was pulling the guy back. But he called the police as well.
Right.
It came rather fast, though. I wonder if there was, like, cops that are just, like, around, and they just, like, called them in, like, gotta get in here,
Right, and I think a big problem with our society is, like, the first thing was to call the police because a law was broken, not necessarily to break up the fight and restore the relationship.
Right.
Like, I feel like, John, and be honest with me, right? If I'm wrong about this, let me know, right? But if I punched you in the face, right, and you punched me in the face, we got into a horrific argument, right? I feel like immediately after, we could be like, let's go to the store and get some sandwiches, right? And play some Monopoly.
Totally. Me and you, we could pretty much patch up anything right away with a sandwich, for sure.
Yes, we can, ladies and gentlemen. What do me and John bond over? Sandwiches, Arizona, Monopoly, and the Joker. But that's another story for another day.
And we used to bond over The Simpsons. We used to watch The Simpsons and eat sandwiches, and you stopped that. And I'm really disappointed about that. I do miss that. I'm not going to lie.
I miss it too, John, but I just can't. The Lord convicted me on that.
Now, Joe, we were just talking about jail. Now, I don't know how much you keep up with Staten Island news since you've been off the island, but have you heard about what's going on with Staten Island and a jail?
Are they adding a jail to the island?
Here's what happened. So we used to have a jail on Staten Island, and then it shut down, and then they're actually in the process of turning it into a movie studio as we speak on Staten Island. Joe, have you ever heard of a place called Rikers Island?
I have.
Rikers Island is one of the most dangerous prisons in the world. And due to one reason or another, there's a very good chance they might be shutting down.
Okay.
So they had a hearing about this. And one genius came up with the idea and said, oh, what happens to all the criminals that are in Rikers Island if we shut down Rikers Island? And then another person stood up and said, I have an idea. let's build a new jail in the South Shore of Staten Island and just move the Rikers Island criminals to Staten Island. And that's kind of where we are now.
Well, and I didn't think that Staten Island could get any worse.
Now, here's the thing, though. Obviously, if criminals want to escape, they don't stay in Staten Island. They get as far away as they possibly can from there. So that is one of the good aspects of it. You know, if somebody does break out, they're not going to be sticking around here. They're gonna head as far out as they possibly can.
I mean, who wouldn't want to live on Staten Island, right?
Oh yeah, totally. But yeah, that's kind of where we are now with a jail on Staten Island, not to mention Rikers Island criminals being sent here. I just think that is, oh man, I don't think we need that, especially with all the expansions that are currently going on Staten Island. Where the mall is getting a huge expansion. We're getting another atrium movie theater down by the ferry terminal with a rooftop bar overlooking the Manhattan skyline. We're going to get the world's largest Ferris wheel. We have a lot of good things coming to us. We don't need a jail. We don't need a prison. I mean,
it's a 13 freaking mile island. How much can you fit on it? World's largest Ferris wheel. I'm convinced you won't even fit on there.
I know it's going to take up
the dump anyway, literally.
But yeah, that's kind of a problem. So yeah, we are there with that, and I mean, I hope it doesn't happen. I hope we just don't need that in our world. But
well,
Joe,
actually, John, I don't know. I feel like it would be a much shorter trip for the prisoners.
And Joe, you know, speaking about prisoners and headlines and whatnot, should we get into our headlines?
Yeah.
So I have a great headline, and this comes close to home, and this fits in with the topic of prisons and whatnot. Headline from the Washington Post: New Jersey man completes 30-year murder sentence. He gets out, and 2 days later, he kills his mother.
Sounds legit.
What?
Sounds legit.
Oh my God. In October of 2014, Stephen Pratt was supposed to begin his new life anew. He had served out a 30-year prison sentence and got home to Atlantic City, New Jersey, where his family held a party to welcome him. But a violent history would repeat itself all too soon. Pratt was 15 when he got into an argument with his next-door neighbor, Michael Anderson. Court shows that Anderson was a father figure to Pratt. And then on October 11th, 1984, he asked Pratt and his friends to vacate a hallway in the apartment building where they were noisily hanging out and smoking weed. Angered by Anderson's request, Pratt retrieved a lead pipe from his apartment and approached Anderson with it in his hand. Anderson wrestled the pipe from Pratt's grasp, striking him on the face. Then Pratt's mother entered the room, and Anderson... Then Pratt's mother entered the room, and Anderson left. Hours later, Pratt knocked on the door of Anderson's apartment when the neighbors appeared. Pratt asked him if he recalled the fight earlier that day and then shot him dead. Pratt was tried as an adult for the murder and began serving his sentence at a maximum security prison. 30 years later, Pratt was 45 when he got out. He returned to the Atlantic City neighborhood where his 64-year-old mother resided. It was a quite part of the town, the kind of place where kids carved hearts around the initials in wet cement on the sidewalk. Okay. No one guessed that the mother would lose her life in less than 2 days after her son got his freedom. And he murdered her, which is just insane. I can't believe it.
Now, I just want to say something. Me personally, I've never done weed, right? And I don't think you have done weed either, John. I've never done any drugs, but I've seen people who are on weed, and I've evangelized people on weed, and I've got to say, it's impressive that he got angry while on weed. Like, that takes a special type of anger.
Well, I've also never done weed. I've actually never smoked a single thing before in my life. But from what I've heard, that the 3 side effects of weed are happy, hungry, and sleepy. So yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, and it's just a shame. It's just what we're talking about before. 30 years in prison, and our government expects that these people will just learn, and they don't. And these people, they need rehab, they need help, they need sources, they need everything they can possibly get, so that when they get out 30 years later, they won't kill their mother 2 days later.
Yeah, absolutely. Rehabilitation, restoration, and what was that last R?
Restoration? Restitution.
Oh, I want to explain the difference between restitution and restoration, because you seemed a little confused on that.
Go ahead.
Restitution is when you hold on one moment, please.
What are you doing?
Sorry, my deepest apologies.
What are you doing?
Okay, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I was having some technical difficulties. Restoration is for the person that committed the crime. Restitution is for the person who the crime was committed against.
Gotcha. I understand. Now, Joe, before we wrap this up, what would you like to recommend for our listeners this week?
Well, I used to play a game a lot called SWOTOR, and I stopped playing it for a while. I got swamped with stuff, and I'm not sure if it's because I haven't played it in a long time, or because they updated it, but I really enjoy it. They really got some good stuff in there. I would recommend it to anybody. And it's one of those things I can't do every day, but I would recommend it to you if you have like a half hour or an hour of your time. If you want to just waste it playing a game, that's the game to go to. It's free. You go to SWOTOR. They're not sponsoring us, so I'm not talking out of my butt. I actually really enjoy the game.
Yeah, nobody's sponsoring us. Nobody's.
But if you want to,
please send us an email to podcast@jmadigan.com. Please, if you like to sponsor us, please do it. But I would like to recommend, this past week, I went out and I bought myself a Wii U. And I got Super Mario Maker. I'm having fun with that. And so I would recommend that you go out and buy a Wii U. So that is my recommendation for you guys today. And Joe, what should we call this episode?
How about we title it the 3 R's?
3 R's? Okay. All right, cool. That's cool. Guys, thank you so much for listening to us. Don't forget, we have a very possible special guest coming on very soon. Could be the next episode, could be the week after that. We're going to bring that to you soon. Send in your guesses to podcast@jmadigan.com. My name is John Madigan.
And I'm Joe Vassallo.
And thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for us next week, every Wednesday on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, all of that. Thank you guys so much. Well, thank you for listening to the J&J podcast.